Have you ever just been completely, like, blindsided by attraction? That instant where you meet someone and poof,
Mm.
the rest of the world just kind of fades out?
Oh, absolutely. It feels less like you're deciding something and more like something's just switched on inside you, like a
Mhm.
full system activation.
Right, a seismic event, yeah. For ages, we've called it, fate, destiny, sparks flying. But now I think people are really curious. They want to know, okay, what's actually happening? What's the real psychological, the neurochemical anatomy of falling in love?
It's a huge question. And honestly, it's a massive challenge to explain properly. Because you got this dense, complex science on one side,
Mm-hmm.
the neurochemistry, the psych concepts, and then you've got this deeply personal, purely emotional feeling on the other. How do you even bridge that gap?
Especially for a general audience, yeah.
Well,
Without falling back on, like, cheesy movie tropes or drowning them in jargon they can't follow. So that's actually where our source material for this deep dive comes in. It's a bit different this time. We're not looking at academic papers directly. Instead, we've got this instruction set. A blueprint, really. It's a structural guide for writing a 5-minute storytelling script, specifically designed to explain the psychology of attraction for, like, a YouTube channel audience.
okay, so it's focused on communication.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
meant to be cinematic, emotional, easy to grasp. And what's cool is that this document basically forces the creator to boil everything down. It's a distillation of what someone decided are the absolute must-know facts to make sense of attraction in a super concise format.
And that kind of framework is gold for us because it shows us what the perceived essentials are, what someone decided constitutes the minimum viable explanation for understanding attraction.
Yeah.
So our mission today really is to unpack why these specific elements were chosen for that blueprint, what makes them non-negotiable. The goal is that you, listening, walk away with those really critical nuggets, the core ideas about what drives human connection. Clarity, not confusion.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that structure then, because the first thing that jumps out is the timeline. 5 minutes. That's really fast.
Incredibly tight. It means every single piece has to work hard, no wasted words.
And the structure itself is quite demanding. The instructions say right off the bat, you need a powerful hook in the first 30 seconds, something attention-grabbing, but then a huge chunk, 2 whole minutes, has to be dedicated just to a fictional story.
Yeah, a story of two people meeting, feeling that spark, falling for each other.
Why so much time on story before you even get to the science?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? For making complex ideas stick, you absolutely need that narrative anchor first. The audience has to connect emotionally. They need those 2 minutes filled with dialogue, sensory details, feeling what the characters feel.
Well, before you hit them with the brain chemistry.
Exactly. If you just leap into, okay, let's talk dopamine.
Yeah.
You've probably already lost half your audience. The story creates the why should I care factor.
Yeah.
It gives the emotional context that makes the later psychological breakdown actually feel relevant and meaningful,
So the source material is basically saying, use a mini romance as a case study.
pretty much.
The characters meet, they feel something, maybe they share a laugh, a quick touch, something relatable.
Right. And then only after you've established that emotional connection through the story,
Yeah.
then the script is allowed to pivot into the core explanation.
Okay, and that's the next big chunk. 2 minutes for the science bit.
Correct. And this is where it gets really interesting from an analytical perspective, because the instructions are super specific here. They mandate that this 2-minute explanation must cover 5 specific psychological concepts. No negotiation.
5 concepts in 2 minutes, linked back to the story.
Yes, and the idea is that these 5, together, form the complete, concise picture of attraction they want the audience to grasp.
All right, so we're shifting from analyzing timing to analyzing the content, the essential knowledge itself. What are these 5 core components the blueprint insists on?
Okay, so first, logically, you have to tackle the neurochemistry of that initial spark. Concept number 1, dopamine.
Ah, dopamine, the usual suspect. Often gets called the pleasure chemical, right?
It does, but that's a bit of an oversimplification, especially for, a deeper understanding. We need a bit more nuance here.
Okay, so beyond just feeling good, what's the required angle on dopamine for explaining attraction?
The key is that dopamine isn't just about the reward itself, the pleasure. It's fundamentally the chemical driving seeking and anticipation.
Seeking, like seeking the other person.
Exactly. It fuels motivation, goal-directed behavior. So if your story character is like eagerly checking their phone for a text or staying up late just thinking about the other person,
That's dopamine.
that's dopamine driving the bus. It makes you want to engage, repeat contact, try new things with that person. It creates that restless, excited, slightly well, obsessive feeling of new love.
The engine of infatuation, you could say.
Precisely. It explains the thrill, the pursuit.
Okay, that covers the initial rush, but the blueprint seems to want to move beyond just the thrill pretty quickly. What's the next chemical, and why is it essential to bring it in right after dopamine?
Concept number 2, mandated, is oxytocin. And its inclusion is crucial for explaining the shift from that initial intense thrill towards something more like bonding.
Right, oxytocin, often called the cuddle hormone or the bonding hormone.
But yet it's deeper than just cuddling. Its core function relates to building in-group trust, feelings of security, and deep attachment. It gets released through things like physical touch,
Yeah.
but also sustained eye contact, sharing vulnerabilities, feeling understood.
So the script needs to show that transition, from the dopamine-fueled chase to the oxytocin-based comfort and connection.
Yes, and the inherent tension between those two systems is important. Dopamine thrives on novelty, anticipation, the chase, which, let's be honest, can burn out.
Yeah, you can't sustain that level of intensity forever.
Whereas oxytocin is about stability, security, comfort. The blueprint forces the writer to include both, even in just 5 minutes, because, well, attraction without connection is incomplete.
Okay. So a story that only shows the dopamine rush isn't really a story about love, it's just about infatuation.
Exactly. To explain the full anatomy, you need the mechanism that turns that exciting, maybe unstable pursuit into a secure, comfortable bond. Dopamine and oxytocin.
Yeah.
Both are essential for the full picture.
Got it. So that lays the neurochemical foundation, the seeking and the bonding. But attraction isn't just brain soup, right? There are psychological factors.
Right, which brings us to concept number 3 that the blueprint demands. Similarity.
Similarity. Okay, that one feels maybe a little less obvious in the initial stages. Isn't similarity more about long-term compatibility?
That's a great question. If the story focuses on that first chemical rush, why shove similarity into the brief science explanation?
Yeah, it almost feels like it pushes against the whole opposites attract romance trope. Why is similarity, shared traits, values, whatever considered essential here?
Because psychologically, similarity acts as a kind of immediate viability filter.
Yeah.
Even in that early stage, it drastically cuts down the brain's workload in figuring out if this connection is, like, safe or sustainable.
How so?
Well, when the characters in the story suddenly discover they share a weird hobby or have the same view on something important, it's not just a cute moment. Psychologically, it triggers a feeling of relief, of comfort, of, oh, this person gets me. It signals predictability and safety.
So it kind of reinforces the connection, maybe even boosts the oxytocin release because you feel safer faster.
Plausibly, yeah. The blueprint includes it because our brains, even amidst that dopamine frenzy, are constantly doing quick risk assessments. Similarity basically flags the connection as lower risk. It predicts less conflict, more understanding down the line.
Okay, that makes similarity feel much more foundational than just, liking the same bands. It's about perceived safety and reduced friction.
Right.
All right, that brings us to the fourth concept, which honestly seemed a bit vague when we first looked at it. Attraction, general.
Yes. That one requires a bit of thought.
If we've already covered the seeking chemical, dopamine, the bonding chemical, oxytocin, and a key psychological predictor, similarity, why make the writer include this broad umbrella term, attraction? Feels a bit redundant.
I think its role here is synthesis. Given how short the time is, the scriptwriter needs a moment to step back from the specific pieces and define the overall thing that's happening. So, attraction general isn't just summing up the parts. It's defining the complex, multifaceted response that brings everything together in that moment.
Okay, so it's acknowledging the other stuff too, like physical cues, symmetry, health signals, maybe even timing and readiness.
Precisely. It's the narrator's chance to say, look, while dopamine and oxytocin are firing, similarity is being assessed, the whole phenomenon we call attraction is this integrated package. It's a response triggered by physical cues, psychological states, context.
Gotcha. So it's the holistic label for who we happen to feel that dopamine rush about based on a whole bunch of inputs.
Exactly. It frames it as an integrated adaptive response.
And that phrase, adaptive response, leads perfectly into the fifth and final mandatory concept.
Evolutionary psychology.
The big why.
The big why, absolutely. Without this final piece, the audience just has a list of chemicals and behaviors. Okay, so my brain does this, but why? Evolutionary psychology provides that ultimate context. It explains the underlying adaptive reason for the whole attraction system existing in the first place.
So connecting it back, why does my brain release dopamine when I meet someone promising?
Because, evolutionarily speaking, seeking out novel, rewarding social connections, especially potential mates, increase the chances of survival and passing on your genes.
And why does similarity feel good?
Because partners perceived as similar might have been more likely to share resources effectively, cooperate on raising offspring, come from a compatible tribe, reducing risks.
It frames the whole thing, the seeking, the bonding, the preference for similar partners as strategies shaped over millennia to maximize, well, adaptive fitness,
Yeah.
getting genes into the next generation.
It's a very neat way to wrap up the scientific explanation in that tight 2-minute window. It gives purpose to all the pieces.
Okay, so let's recap the logic the blueprint imposes. You got dopamine and oxytocin, that's the how, the internal chemical machinery.
Mhm.
Then similarity and attraction, general, that's kind of the what, the specific preferences and the overall response.
Right.
And finally, evolutionary psychology, that's the deep why, the ultimate purpose behind it all.
Exactly. And the blueprint says these 5 are non-negotiable because together they offer a complete yet concise and purposeful narrative of attraction.
Wow. Okay, so in the script, you've just spent 2 minutes drawing direct lines from, say, the character's nervous excitement to dopamine, their feeling of trust after sharing something, to oxytocin, maybe their shared laugh over a weird opinion, to similarity, all framed by the evolutionary why.
That's the goal.
Now you've got 30 seconds left. The structure demands a landing, a final conclusion that acts as a takeaway or a life lesson.
Yeah, that last 30 seconds is critical. It's not just ending the explanation, it's about transferring the wisdom. The tone here has to shift slightly. Clear, simple, maybe a little inspiring, after you've just told people their deepest feelings are tied to predictable neurobiology.
Yeah, you can't just leave them hanging with, "That's brain chemistry for you." The end.
Right. You need to offer a perspective shift, something useful.
You need to answer the listener's implicit question. Okay, cool science, but what do I do with this knowledge now?
Exactly. That conclusion is where you ensure the audience walks away understanding that, yes, our strongest emotions have this biological basis, but that doesn't make them less real or less meaningful.
Right.
The insight maybe is that appreciating the chemical engine of love doesn't have to strip away the magic. Perhaps it adds a layer of wonder.
Or maybe the practical takeaway is more about managing expectations. Like, understanding the dopamine phase is intense, but often temporary.
And that building a lasting relationship means consciously nurturing the conditions for oxytocin, focusing on trust, security, vulnerability, shared experiences.
That's a really practical application of the science, knowing the phases.
That's the kind of meaningful insight this structure seems designed to deliver in that final peak.
Okay, so stepping back from the details and looking at this whole blueprint, the big takeaway isn't just the 5 concepts. It feels like a lesson in communication itself. It shows that to really explain something complex like attraction effectively, whether you're talking to a friend or prepping for a big presentation, you need that blend. You need the compelling story, the relatable human element, paired with the specific concrete science, the chemicals, the psychological drivers.
And importantly, the underlying purpose, the why, from an evolutionary standpoint.
It's the heart and the head.
It really is. And what's fascinating is seeing how carefully that complete picture can be built, even under extreme time pressure like 5 minutes. If you hit the right structural notes and the right core concepts, it proves you need both the narrative and the clear, purposeful science for true understanding to click.
So we spent this time dissecting the blueprint for a story about falling in love. We've looked at the mandatory plot points, the required chemicals, the psychological underpinnings, the evolutionary context. And thinking about all that leads us to, well, our final provocative thought for you to chew on. If knowing all these specific steps, the mechanics, the chemical reactions from the first dopamine hit to the long-term oxytocin bond, makes the whole process of attraction understandable, even predictable, does that detailed knowledge make the actual experience of falling in love feel less mysterious, less magical?
Or does understanding the incredibly complex, ancient, and purposeful biological machinery humming away beneath that beautiful feeling make it seem even more remarkable?
Less magic or more wonder? Something for you to ponder.